All right, so how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm really excited to do this with you. How are you feeling?
I'm very excited too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet you because I know I've emailed you a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
So now to see what you actually look like in a face, now I know.
Absolutely. Same.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You do a lot of the live labs, right?
I do. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Thank you so much for your work with that. It really helps us every single term.
it's my pleasure.
All right, you ready to get started?
I am.
Big 10 questions.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with something light.
Okay.
Okay. So, what was your worst job?
Gosh. Um, I worked in college. I worked at Myers, but not doing anything cool. I was in the back, like working in like the food service. And so I love French fries. But after that, I was like, so I didn't eat French fries for like a couple of years. So that was probably the worst.
Okay. It's so funny. It was like, wasn't the coolest job, but
Yeah.
you love French fries, so it was kind of like a benefit there, right?
Right.
To still get your one of your favorite foods.
Yes. But the rest of the food, I was like, ooh, no.
It's hard to go wrong with fries.
That's true though.
Okay. So let's do this one since it's relevant. What is the first thing you notice when you meet someone?
Their eyes always.
Hmm.
Yeah. Always their eyes.
Okay. What is it
Yeah.
about the eyes?
Well, it's the windows to your soul. No, I don't really know if that's true. Um, I it's actually eye color.
Mm,
So I have very dark blue eyes.
mhm,
And one of my eyes is actually half brown.
mm.
And my mother has very dark brown eyes, but she has the lightest brown eyes in her family. So it my family has always just talked about eyes because my grandmothers were green and everybody else had brown. And then here comes me with these dark or dark blue eyes, half of one being brown. And it was like, what happened there? So I always look at people's eye color, I think is what it is.
Okay. Well, I have dark brown eyes.
Mhm.
That's interesting though. And I definitely have heard that phrase too, behind
Yeah.
someone's eyes is their soul. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty intense,
Yeah, it's
you
super
know.
intense.
Okay. Next question. What is one thing that the group would be surprised to learn about you? Or just a group of people or just the school in general?
Yeah, I'm pretty much an open book. I love horror movies.
Mm, okay.
Maybe that would be it. Um, and so I guess I have like I don't want to say a dark side, but I love slasher movies and stuff like that.
Mm,
Um, and oh, I think also the other thing would be my taste in music. So I'm a big Nine Inch Nails fan, but I'm Jewish, so I love Barry Manilow.
okay.
So
Okay.
I think those would be the three biggest things, actually.
Neat. Well, I'm completely scared of horror movies. I hardly ever watch them. Have you seen the newest Jeepers Creeper? Jeepers
I have
Creep.
not yet, but I
Okay.
did see the new Halloween Ends. I saw that yesterday with my nephew.
Hmm.
He's about to be 18 in November, and I have a Cricut, so I made us matching shirts and matching sweatshirts, and I make him wear them. I actually think he kind of is okay with it, but I'm like, all right, I'm getting an outfit together for us, and he's like, really?
But he goes along with it.
Oh yeah, for sure. He is like 6'4". He's tall, big guy. He's a football
Mhm.
player, so it's
Oh
quite
wow,
funny to see us walking around together in our matching outfits.
that's cool though. Super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go. Let's go to a deeper question.
Ooh, okay.
So, where did you first observe the concept of social justice and advocacy? Provide at least one example of how you would uphold these concepts in your life.
Okay, so this is a great question. I'm Jewish, but I grew up in a very Catholic area. I'm in Aurora, Illinois, very Catholic area. Um, and all my life that I can remember, we've had to have guards outside of our temple. Because you don't know what's going to happen. There have been, I don't want to say threats that I know of. Well, when I was growing up, I guess they wouldn't have told us, but we always had guards. Our doors were always locked. And I think that that's kind of what started us with social justice. My mom's from Detroit, and she remembers, she was there during the Detroit riots, and my mother has very coarse, thick hair, very curly, coarse, thick hair. And my mom had to go to African-American beauty salons growing up because no one who was white could handle her hair and could help it. And so I think from her stories about growing up in Detroit, and then my stories being Jewish in a very Catholic area, I think that the social justice part of it was things that I was very cognizant in as a very early age, which is sad, but also I think that kind of, for me, as I got older, advocacy became a very important part of my life for not just Jews, but for anybody who was not of the majority. Yeah. What was the second part of the question?
Just an example, and I believe you provided several. It
Okay.
sounds like your personal experiences,
Yeah.
just, not even being able to, go in a place of worship without having, guards posted.
Yeah.
I can imagine what that must have, felt like growing up.
Yeah.
Even for your mom, her experience of, not being able to just go into a salon as normal and just simply, right, get her hair done.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think for me a lot too, I was I mean, I haven't had a year yet that I haven't been discriminated against in Aurora for being Jewish. And that's been hard, and weird because it's 2022. Maybe this is the year though. So we'll see.
I find that, just different geographical locations have a bit harder time just, getting the information, ingesting the information, and really making change.
Yeah.
Some things are just rooted in normalcy, right? I think part of social justice and advocacy is just being willing to change, being willing to be open to others outside of yourself. And, sometimes depending on the areas we live in, even especially rural places. I come from a very rural setting.
Okay.
And change it's hard. It takes a long
Yeah.
time, a
Yes.
long time. If you ask my grandmother, how it was when she grew up versus, what my experience were, even what people's experience there are now, I'm sure it would vary greatly. But I mean, that's a lifetime of experience for it
Exactly.
to even begin to change.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Okay. So I think I have another question that might.
Yeah. Are you counting how many questions? Because I don't know anymore.
Well, I have them highlighted. I have
Okay, cool.
highlighted the ones
Perfect.
I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Okay, so just going off of the advocacy, where do you see the greatest need for advocacy in our field?
There's so many places. I'm gonna talk specifically about myself. In my multicultural class with Dr. Dixon over the summer, I was able to do some work on Jewish identity. And, the department always says, look for, when you're going to do your dissertation, look for something that is lacking in, research. And I was looking for counseling counseling with Jewish people. And that's where I found the lack of information. And I thought to myself, there is some person out there who's Jewish, who the only place that they can go to get counseling is a Christian-based counseling center. And they're going to walk in there and be just completely, disheartened, or lose faith in counseling, or something's going to happen. Or maybe it's not even just a Christian base. Maybe it's just a counseling private practice, and they just don't know how to work with somebody of the Jewish faith. And that really started bothering me, especially in today's society. I I get the Jewish Daily Forward, which, by the way, comes twice a day in my email box. It is the oldest Yiddish magazine in America, but I love the fact that it comes twice a day, even though it's just the Daily Forward. And they're just there's so much anti-Semitism right now, and no one is talking about it, and no one is doing anything. And it's so scary and so hard that I kind of made the decision yesterday. I haven't told Dr. Dixon or Dr. Harris yet, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do something about Judaism and counseling, because there's some nice little Jewish girl or boy out there who is watching all this stuff, or maybe grew up like I did, and they need help.
Yeah.
And I recognize that we as counselors try and work or something within our community to help our community, and I didn't realize that my community needed so much help.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And it just kind of reminds me that, it's like the majority, right? And, even as we look at social justice and advocacy, we can look at the majority groups that need, right, social justice and advocacy, and still overlook, right, people who
Yeah.
still need additional research, areas that we may not normally study. And that's why it's so important, as you look at your dissertation, that you do find those gaps. And that is meaningful to you. What I'm hearing
Mhm.
from you is that this topic is something that's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
It's not just counseling. It's not just research. It's your experience, your lived experience.
Yeah.
Growing up, and I think that just adds to the meaningfulness of the study that you're going to complete and create. And I
Yeah.
can't wait to hear about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we went a little deeper. Let's try to go a little
Mhm.
bit lighter. All right. So if your house were on fire and you could only take one item, not a person, what would you grab?
Does a dog count as a person?
Well, let's say not a living thing.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay. I have a Munster's cuckoo clock. And it literally, when it hits the hour, it does the Monsters or the Munsters TV show theme. That's what it rings.
Mhm.
I love it. And so that's probably what I would grab.
Love it. Sentimental. So I'm guessing Monsters is a movie that you really, really like.
No, the Munsters from the TV show from like the 60s.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. This is one of those shows that I just grew up loving. You know, Herman is a Frankenstein monster. His wife is a vampire. His son is a werewolf, and they just are this. And he's got his wife's dad, grandpa. I think he's Dracula, basically.
Okay.
And they're just the sweetest people. They just love each other unconditionally. And um, I mean, in today's society, it's not that funny, but I'm not going to watch the Rob Zombie one. So I didn't say that out loud. So, but I refuse.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds again like sentimental, grabbing something that it sounds like this show, like for you, I know when I watch a show, sometimes I become a part of the character. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, like some kind of way they're like programmed into like the way I see people and things, and I get attached
Yeah.
to them. And it sounds like this has that type of value for you.
Yeah. The Monsters. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And Beverly Hills 90210, but whatever.
I think I watched that a little bit.
Oh no. That's a good show. Everything I needed to learn about life, I learned watching the original 90210.
I might have to go back and check that out. I'm sure it's available via all the
Oh
platforms
yeah.
at our fingertips. Speaking of apps and things that we have at our fingertips, if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your phone, which would you keep?
Okay. I would keep um entertainment news,
Okay.
TMZ, and Super Mario Brothers Mario Kart.
Okay, can you tell me why those apps?
Um, so I love celebrity gossip. And like with Twitter and stuff now we're learning about the celebrity gossip from the celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm a lifelong People magazine subscriber. Like I still get it to this day. And I wait every Thursday. I'm like, okay, here it comes. And I'm like by Friday morning, I've read it all, even though I follow People magazine, I already know what everything's saying. Um, and so now with E News and TMZ, they're telling me it's coming straight from the horse's mouth, basically, and um I think celebrity is such an interesting phenomenon because I don't want to say that you sign up for it, but you sign up for it. And I applaud the celebrities who can be private with their lives, but at the same time, you are in TV shows and I want to know, so it's like a weird double-edged sword. And Super Mario Kart is just fun. just I just love playing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I must admit, I'm guilty of indulging in a little celebrity gossip myself.
Yes.
It is quite interesting, and I agree. Just that ability I admire the people who are able to maintain a private life because I can't imagine how overwhelming it would be to have
No.
to constantly answer questions, take pictures, even
Yeah.
when you're with your family.
Yeah.
You just want some time alone. Like I imagine it looks completely different from someone who is in the public eye, and
Absolutely.
even more so now because they have access to, or everyone has access to social media and to reach
Mhm.
people and to say derogatory things. Like some of the things that I see people say is so unkind, and I'm just like,
It's
oh my
true.
goodness, to be a
It's
public
so true.
figure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about the last time you had to ask for help.
um well, recently I with the schooling stuff, with getting the PhD and of figuring out um classes and um for me, a big thing for me is I'm going from being a teacher of 12 years to now being a student. And I'm lucky. I've only worked with Dr. Dixon, Dr. Harris, and I'm lucky that they're patient because I am finding myself getting um, very teacher oriented. Oh, it should be like this, or do you want it like this, or and so I'm having trouble, and so I've asked Dr. Harris um, for help with that. And then I've asked Dr. Dixon for help. I had a possible job opportunity and I asked him for help and he's like, no, I don't know about this. And then, so yeah, I ask for help as much as possible. Actually, I'm probably the opposite of everybody in the world who's like, I'm not going to ask for help. And here's me like, okay, now what should I do? So, um, I so it's been that. I'm sure I did something today or yesterday, but I can't think of anything.
Well, I think it's a great skill to be able to ask for
Mhm.
help. I mean, so many people struggle just from not just saying, "Hey, I need your support. I need some
Mhm.
help. Lend an ear, lend
Yeah.
something." Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to have, especially as a counselor,
Mhm.
because we take on so
So
many,
much.
so much, we're holding space for so many people. And even, as you become a counselor educator, it goes from like, I'm holding space for my clients, now I'm holding to an extent, space for my students.
Yeah.
So being able to ask for help, I think is just so important
Yeah.
to the work we do. And speaking of help, when you do have struggles and you need support, who do you go to first? Like, who's your person?
Well, my mother first. Which is weird because my mom is very business oriented.
Hmm.
And so she looks at everything very business based. And then I am not very business oriented at all. Um, so I guess first her, and then my best friend Jenny, who tells me how I'm supposed to live my life, which works out fine for me. Um, and then her, I would think. And then if it's like school based, then I would go to my teacher mentor, Dr. Bill. And if it's counseling, then I would go to a colleague group that I have. We meet every other Wednesday, and so I would go to that group and ask for advice or help through them. So yeah, that's about it.
That's awesome. Like you have your people, like you know
Yeah,
exactly who to go to and for
exactly.
what. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's handy and super important. I know sometimes I'm like racking my brain, like who can help me with this, and
Yeah.
trying not to like over rely maybe on one person so they don't just feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you have a really good balance with that too.
I'm very lucky. Very lucky.
Yeah. Since you said you are is easily able to ask for help like that, that's great. I'm not surprised that you can also have people that you know
Yeah.
that'll support you through different things.
Yeah.
All right, last question.
Ooh.
Dum, 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 dum. What is the worst thing you have ever witnessed?
In real life.
I mean, let's do both. Why not?
Okay. Okay. So, remember I said I love horror movies, right? But however, even though I know that it's fake, when they do something to an animal
Mm,
on the show, I'm like,
mm,
like this, right? I can't do it.
mhm,
Um, and the worst thing that I've ever actually in real life encountered was as an intern. So this was 2009. I was working in community mental health, specifically severe mental health. And the child and adolescent department asked me if I could um, just take a couple of kid clients. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And I had a 6-year-old with early onset schizophrenia. Literally the scariest thing I'd ever seen in my life. This kid was, um, you hope that when you see kids, that no matter what goes on, they can be resilient and you can help them move past that and they can go in and have a better life. And I don't know if I was too young of a counselor or what exactly happened, but I looked at this kid and I said, there's no way he's going to make it. Like, there's no way. He was too far gone with his hallucinations and delusions. I think his family didn't care. And no matter, I was new, so that's, I had a great supervisor at the time, but I took this client home with me every day when I saw him. And I realized that that's not how to be a counselor. I should be able to shut my door on the day and leave everything there. And this client came home with me. And that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I can't work with anyone under 16. So I ended up having to work with this client for 3 months because I couldn't, there weren't enough counselors at the time to refer him to somebody in the organization. And I can't tell you how many times I cried on my way home after seeing this kid. He was just, he wasn't going to make it.
mm,
There was no way with his family, just, not liking him and with all his delusions and hallucinations and with, there was some sexual abuse going on too. There was no way.
mm.
Yeah. That was the scariest thing I've ever seen in real life.
I can only imagine. I worked at a psychiatric hospital for quite a few years, and
Mhm.
I saw some troubling things come through
Sure.
too. And to some extent, I think it's unrealistic for us to think that we're never going to take anything home, that something is never going to bother us, because there are cases
Absolutely.
that are just that intense, right?
Mhm.
It's challenging to say that, you know what, I'm going to just be able to bracket this and put it on the shelf, because we're trying to rack our brain of like, how are we going to help this person? Can we help this person?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you just kind of recognize that to some extent this was out of your control, right? There's
Mhm.
only so much you can do. There's limited support.
Yeah.
There's trauma in conjunction with this diagnosis, um, or rather, provisional, diagnosis symptoms that you were seeing. But um, I'm curious to know, if we even know what happened here. But I think more so than that, I'm curious to know, how you developed since that time. As I'm sure you've heard, more cases that have been challenging. But just
Mhm.
even your ability to be able to, like you said, maybe sit it on a shelf and come back to it tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think switching to not working with anyone under 16
Mhm.
mentally for me, that helped.
Yeah.
And just being able to say, okay, now I know I don't have to see this again.
Mhm.
And that's why when a student says to me, well, I'm thinking about being a child therapist, good. We need more of
Yeah.
those.
Absolutely.
But be prepared, depending on where you're working, to see some stuff,
Mhm.
and um I also think that I think we need child and adolescent therapists, but also marriage and family therapists are really needed, at least in Illinois where I am. Um, so if I have a student who's like, yeah, I can do this, great, do it. Cause you know what? I can't. So you need to fill that void for me because it's
Yeah.
not going to be me.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
would agree, it's not an area. I don't tend to work with children
Mm.
or adolescents, anyone like you, similar to you, really 16 and up, and preferably not even that.
Me too. Me too.
However, I do think there's also some need for advocacy, for more families to go to counseling. You see a lot of referrals for, some individual in the family that's having the issue, but not necessarily a lot of families
Yeah.
always coming in to, look at the whole picture, and really see how they can meet the needs for each other.
Yeah.
I think even, some social justice advocacy efforts are needed in that area for families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like with severe mental health, especially,
Hmm.
you know, that the family should be involved with the care.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
mhm.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed. I could talk about this for a long time,
nice.
but that was the 10th question.
Oh, yay.
Should have picked a lighter question, huh, to end.
Yeah,
That was a little intense.
that's okay.
Yeah. So how was this for you?
I loved it. It was
Yeah.
fun. I feel bad because I would like to give you 10 questions to find out about you, but I know that that's not how this works. So, um, yeah, I loved it. And um, again, I'd like to ask you tons of questions. I'm glad that you gave your opinion and talked about your experiences too, because at least that gave me some hint of you as a person. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
And we're on email. So if you ever want to connect, feel free to reach out. We can
Nice.
definitely do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.